Yeah, so wonderful. Hello again. It's Kim and Patricia again with the monthly business update, and it's already month four or number four, right, Kim?
I cannot believe that time is going so fast. And before we know it, it's going to be the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. And I still didn't have a client yet.
And that's okay because the operative word is yet, and it will unfold in the perfect time. I really,
It
really
will.
believe that.
It will. It will. It's so interesting from that perspective. I mean, when you start with zero followers, a list of zero, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I still love the topic. So in the meantime, I'm reading books. I consider doing another course, maybe just to stay in the topic and educate myself further. But yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. The social media posts. I dabbled into the videos a little bit. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's I guess me business wise. From
Well,
what
and
has happened in the past. I think we met each other 3 weeks ago, actually, because we were late for the other one, right?
yeah. And well, so the thought that goes through my mind, though, when you're talking about that, in terms of the frustration and what you've been working on is, and what if all of this, like what you perceive maybe as waiting is really preparation. And so like the extra courses that you may take or the additional books that you may read may be preparing you for the specialized niche that you may end up going
Yeah,
into, or
yeah.
the possible clients that that might be sent your way.
How is it for you? Are you already refining your messaging on social media, or did you hone it down already? Are you still experimenting, or are you? Sometimes I'm torn between just. I mean, I don't have any followers, so I don't have a lot of data to work with, right? But so that I could refine my message. I just do it
Yeah.
based on what's interesting for me right now.
Yeah.
And I still try to stay consistent. So far, I've been really good, right? But it's not a routine for me yet. It's still effort.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's definitely effort. It's probably moved a little bit more into the routine side of things, but it's not the the quality or the, I don't want to say it's not the quality that I want because I think it is good quality content, but it's not the variety or maybe the depth. I'm posting Bible scriptures and then I'm unpacking that a little bit, but I really want to get more into the practical application, a little bit
Hmm.
more of the neuroscience where faith and neuroscience intersect. I love that. And that's what I'm passionate about. Um, but I think we talked a little bit just before we started the recording. It's life is full. And it's, even though I'm not working another full-time job outside of this work, it's just full and busy,
Yeah,
and trying to fit all the things that I want to into a 24-hour period um, is sometimes challenging, and that's
yeah,
okay, right? Because this is my
yeah,
first time on this planet, and so we learn and we
yeah,
grow and we give ourselves grace. Yeah.
yeah. So why don't you share what has happened in your 4 weeks or 3 weeks? Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Weeks.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think back last time that we talked. I think I was trying to refine and get printed a bookmark for a mental health conference. So I did get that done. I learned a lot in that process because, I had it ready to go. Didn't take too much effort to like get it mocked up. I think I made like 5 different trips to the printer because they
Yeah.
couldn't get it lined up, or they had to manually feed it in, and so the front side didn't match up with the back side. Anyway, long story short on that, I finally printed it through Canva and it turned out really well. So I'm super excited about that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one big thing. That was honestly probably the hardest thing of everything that I've done. So note to self, be careful with bookmarks in the future. And then I mentioned, went on a vacation. It actually was a church trip also. And so I was invited to do a seminar. So that was really exciting. And the topic, the name of my seminar was the same as my business, Transformed by Truth, because it's just really what I've walked through and really the message that I have to share with people. So it was exciting. I spoke in front of, I want to say maybe 40 people. So I know I was really excited. It was recorded on a cell phone. So I don't know. I don't have that yet. So I don't know if it turned out. If it did, I'm excited to try to unpack that and, use it for content on the social media posts. If not, then I don't know, maybe I'll recreate it, give the seminar again, even if it's to my own self or my dog in the living room, right? Just for filming content purposes. And then, so that's probably it for like business stuff. You and I had started talking a little bit more about personal, what happened when I got home. Do we want to get into that right now?
Yeah, and did you have more client work? Probably
Oh,
also, right?
yes, I did. I
Wow.
think I had one maybe before I left, and then I actually had one at the conference, which was a referral, which was
Wow.
really cool. Yeah, it
So
was.
cool.
Yeah, it's.
Congratulations, Kim. Let's celebrate that for a
Thank
moment.
you, thank
So
you,
good. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations, Kim.
thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's so funny because it's for me. I don't know if this is true for you, but I can find myself getting so caught up in the ticking the boxes of the social media content that it is almost a distraction from doing the real work. Does that make sense?
Okay. Oh,
Like,
interesting.
yeah, in terms of, you know, I mean, because if you're, I don't know, in my experience, and I think it's true for a lot of people that I've talked with, oftentimes clients don't come from because somebody happened across your webpage or even from social media. That's not true
Yeah.
for everybody, but I think for the lion's share, that's fairly accurate for a lot of people that I've talked to. It comes from, referrals or in-person interactions, networking, that type of thing. And
Yeah.
and so that's what I say where it can be almost a distraction because you get so busy checking the box of okay having to post right
And
in
you
order to keep
post
that.
daily, right?
I do just to keep that
Yeah.
algorithm up and and like I said I think it's good content but um it's and that's part of why I want to get more into posting about the where neuroscience meets faith and the practical how to because scriptures are amazing and unpacking that more is amazing but I think that we need to get into more of the practicality of what can you do to actually make the change.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, I'm also getting more and more from my situation where I mean, here where I live, it's just like out of question, no one will book a session here, right?
Mm.
It's just not the good client base here. So I want to work remotely and, yeah. So for me, it's also like, how can I use social media to grow my email list? I'm not going
Yeah.
after refer or clients anymore. I want to get more like people download my lead magnet, and so that's something where I'm wrapping my head around. And I post also only 4 times per week, and I also find it already a lot. Because
Yeah.
I mean, if you do it mindfully and don't AI everything and you curate your feed and everything, I mean, you can spend so much time on it, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it can be a really big undertaking and I think kind of to your point earlier maybe for me and maybe for you too I'll just speak for myself I think I probably need to like take a step back and really focus on curating what content that I do want to put out there yes do the
yeah,
posting every day as far as maybe the easier things but more like we talked about last time for me it's the transformation Tuesdays and the
yeah,
wellness Wednesdays things of
yeah,
that nature that can actually put pen to paper put the practical application steps to help people.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you were talking now, I might be misremembering this, but are there ever um, like wellness retreats or anything that happen in the Dominican Republic where you could maybe
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
that?
But it's like it's not a good practice that you poach other people's,
Well, no,
when
I'm not talking about poaching, but working in tandem, like
ah,
collaborating.
yeah, yeah. I'm just too far removed from the local community here. There was a time when I was really involved, 5, 6, 7 years ago, when I was actively teaching yoga and managing a studio. But as
Yeah.
it's such a transient community here, I'm just so out of it.
Mm.
And I couldn't practice yoga for such a long time because of the accident. So, yeah, that feels like a hurdle right now, and I'm not really called to the mat right now, interestingly.
That
Yeah,
is
not yet.
interesting. Well, and maybe that's where what I was talking about earlier in terms of, for me, networking, maybe that, and I don't know, you'll have to lean into that and see if that resonates for you, but maybe picking up those connections again within that community and then just seeing where that leads.
Yeah, I'm just really not sure if they would spend the money though. And it's also because it's such a small community here. I don't want to burden myself. It's really like a
Yeah.
village, you
Yeah.
know. So
Oh,
there's also that aspect of self-protection. I don't want to, yeah, I wouldn't want to be a psychotherapist here either, if that makes sense.
yes.
Yeah, that
That's
would
funny.
be a little bit difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is because you can do this work remote, there are no limits. You can reach out to anybody and
Yeah, I
build.
just need to figure it out. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but then sorry, we interrupted your flow. You wanted to
Oh,
share.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so before we started recording, I was just kind of sharing a little bit about, then when I got home, things were kind of crazy because I had some additional company come and I was out of town again. And then I ultimately had a tooth extracted. So
Mm,
wasn't necessarily going to talk about this, but we decided to go ahead and address it because I think that this is something that can really help people a lot. So
100%.
according to traditional Chinese medicine, and this is something that you and I have learned, throughout our holistic intuitive practitioner journey, there are meridians and certain emotions are associated with certain body parts, even the teeth. And so the tooth that I had to have extracted, I'd been dealing with an infection and ultimately the tooth was cracked, which from a biblical perspective is fascinating to me because wow, I'm going to be a lot more vulnerable than I planned on today, but that's okay because it can help somebody, right?
Mm,
The emotion that was associated with this particular tooth, and I learned this early on through my healing journey, was brokenhearted. And
mm,
that I've tracked that to a variety of different circumstances in my life. But the thing from a fascinating perspective for me is that there's a scripture that talks about, I'm going to try and get this quoted correctly, but a merry heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Well, teeth are bones, and I had a
yeah.
crack in my tooth from being brokenhearted. So, to me, there's a definite correlation and relationship there. But and I've been dealing with this tooth for about 3 years, trying to
Hmm.
heal it naturally, holistically,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like I mentioned, got to the emotional root of it, the brokenheartedness, and addressed that. But ultimately, there was just the physical infection that needed to be taken care of. It was putting a burden on my body and creating a difficulty for energy and resources that could have been going towards other things in my body
Yeah.
were being diverted to that constant infection. So I did finally have the tooth extracted last week. And the thing that was really, I didn't expect it, but it made so much sense. I was so emotional, like not just because of the anesthesia that they had to give me for the procedure.
Yeah.
But I think it was because that blockage, that energetic blockage was removed. And I went to a holistic dentist, so they used more natural procedures. They used ozone to get down in there to help with that infection.
Yeah.
And I'm also on an antibiotic. There is a time and a place to use modern medicine, and I think um, our privilege as humans is to navigate what the best course of action for us is in any given
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
And for me, it was to do both. But it was really interesting because I had so much emotion come up after that tooth was
Yeah.
removed, and it was all of the things that had previously, like if you had to like look at my life with like a big lens, like from a 30-foot view perspective, it was feelings of frustration or feeling stuck, those types of things came up. And
Yeah.
I texted the dentist and I'm like, hey, is this normal for people to get super emotional after this? Because part of me was wondering, okay, is it me? Is it the drugs? What's going on? Right? Even with the training that I had, you start to kind of wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, they confirmed. They said, yeah, it's very typical. Just further reinforcing the scientific and medical community is acknowledging the emotions that are associated with our different organs, with our teeth, the meridian system. It was just a fascinating experience.
Yeah. But I mean, personally, I'm really glad that you finally got to the root cause of it.
But I'm
And
bum.
but yeah, and dealt with it because I
Yeah.
remember since I know you that I know you since 10 months,
Yeah. Yeah.
this tooth was a topic, right?
It was. And, it also was interesting for me personally because I still do believe that if I could have given the time and energy solely to healing the tooth, I do believe that I probably could have healed it on my own. But we're talking, if you think about an antibiotic, you have to take maybe 3 to 4 times a day, depending on what antibiotic you're given. I would have, from a natural perspective, had to be um, tending to the tooth, probably at least that much frequently during the day. And so because I felt like, how's the best way to put this? I guess ultimately one of the struggles that I had in deciding to go ahead and move forward with pulling the tooth is I felt like I had failed. There was a lot of
Mm.
shame involved in
Oh,
that because like
oh.
I just felt like if I kept doing it, if I would have just done a better job at this, then it would have been able to be saved, to save the tooth at all costs. Well, that's a
Mm.
little short-sighted because I need to save the human at all costs, not save the tooth at all cost.
Yeah.
And that actually shame was the topic of that seminar that I gave at that retreat, because I think shame is just such a weaponized thing that we experience. Um, and so it's important to recognize it and then do repatterning for brain patterns so that you can step out of that. And that was kind of what we were planning on talking today is
Yeah.
actually about brain patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, true. So true. But I also still remember the book Healing is Voltage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One portion of it was also dedicated to to acknowledge, like, sometimes your emotional distress or whatever is coming up can also be caused by sickness, you
Yeah.
know
Yes.
so maybe the tooth was the root cause of it channeling up stuff you needed to deal with. You know what I mean?
I
So
think
I
so.
think for a holistic approach, you also need to take care of the school medicine part and need to get rid of the infected tooth.
Yeah, a great, yeah, as you're talking about that, an analogy that comes to mind is if you've got a river and you've got a big boulder in the river blocking the flow of energy or the water in that sense, it's going to create stagnation. And that was really what was going on with
Yeah,
my tooth. Yeah.
yeah,
So by
yeah,
having that removed, there's going to be a lot better flow. And I'm really excited to see the changes just in some of those patterns and some of those thought processes that I had
yeah,
experienced in my life, frustration, feeling stuck, that type of thing, as they are associated with that particular tooth and that particular meridian. So I'm
yeah,
excited. It'll be good to
yeah.
see how those
Keep
changes.
us posted. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Thanks so much for being vulnerable and sharing it, Kim.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, Patricia. It's Brene Brown for those people. Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
For those who may not be, who are watching, she's a researcher and a professor, but she researches shame. And she says that vulnerability is a superpower. And I really
Mm,
believe that. I really, really do. So I try to allow myself to be vulnerable in appropriate seasons and with appropriate audiences.
mm, mm. And yeah, to stick to our usual agenda, we should share a little bit of what's ahead of us in the next 4 weeks, and then we can talk about brain patterns.
Okay.
We're
Would
like
you
the
like to
super
go
influencers
first?
now. We need to go to the origin story and sidetrack a little bit and build up the anticipation until we finally talk about brain patterns today.
Yes. Yes. Stay tuned to the end to learn about the brain.
So what's happening in the next 4 weeks for you?
Well, I need to kind of regroup, take a breath and regroup from just all of the traveling and then the tooth surgery. So that's kind of first priority is get organized, regroup. But then more specifically, so here in the US, we've got Thanksgiving coming up in the next few weeks. I've got at least one of my kids coming home. The jury's still out on if both of them will make it home or not. Business wise, I really want to kind of like we talked about earlier, take this time to be intentional about what I want to do moving forward, what the social media content posting looks like, getting a little bit more into, I want to have more like videos, more interactive, like this type of content. Even if it's just me filming myself doing things, I want more of that. I think it's more engaging. I think it's more experiential. And so that's kind of what I want to do. As far as clients, I don't think I have any booked right now. I intentionally, because of the traveling and the oral surgery, I had marked everything off on my availability calendar. But I do need to follow up with a couple of people to see, check in on them, see if they want to schedule another session. They were super happy with the results. So definitely want to just check in with them. So that's kind of it for me. I'm giving myself a little bit of margin to kind of figure things out right now. But how about you?
How about me? So in a month, it's end of November. I'll still be in Germany. So I'll travel at the end of next week. And then, as we shared in the last business update, I'll do the course for medical pedicure.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I'm really looking forward to that. And yeah, I still have a few good books. I finished Mind to Matter right now. I'm reading a little, it's a self-therapy guide. It's called Focusing. It's super interesting as well. It's a super
Writing that
cool
down.
self-inquiry method. And I have also One Mind I want to read, and I have so many books I want to read. And yeah, also just staying consistent still with the social media content, post 4 times per week for now. Yeah, for me, I believe growing an email list would be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to wrap my head around how I could accomplish that. Um, yeah.
I don't know if this is something that you would want to entertain. It's something that I'm considering, a friend that's kind of in a similar healing space as what we are in, although we do not treat, heal, prescribe, or diagnose, right? We have to make sure to say that. But she is, I've noticed on her social media, she's running some sales, and she seems to be getting traction. I don't know if that's something that either of us would want to consider, but seems to be catching people's attention on social media anyway.
Uh-huh. Interesting. Yeah.
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 And I think for the US anyway, with the Thanksgiving holiday coming up and then Christmas,
Ah,
that's kind of like a natural timing.
yeah.
So for you, maybe not so much Thanksgiving, but Christmas possibly. And it's only what, 8 weeks or something like that to Christmas, maybe.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that I would mention it since we're on that topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still thinking very conservative about the lead magnet, you know? I mean, I have the lead magnet and I wanted to advertise it maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh, that's a great
yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's so hard, I find, to get traction on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, yeah. I mean, we just need to acknowledge that it takes several months until the algorithms pick you up and
Yeah.
yeah. It's hard with all the AI content out there, right?
It so is. It so is. And I should be transparent talking about followers. I think I lost a follower and then I gained another one, but it was really interesting. I'm like, oh, they don't like my content.
Oh,
It's okay. But it just, to your point though, there's so much out there, content, so much social media content. People get overwhelmed, I think. And that's why
yeah.
I think maybe the videos would be more interesting and eye capturing, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also a healthy trend, but I believe that more and more people just can't do social media anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, there are parties in New York of people, Gen Z people coming together and deleting all of their social media accounts together. This is
Oh wow.
so cool. It's such a cool movement, I find. So I'm
I had
just
not heard of
thinking,
that.
I don't want to, how do you call it? I don't want to find excuses or slack or so, but at the same time, this is such a healthy movement. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I still want to do the posting, but then again, I'm like, well, I don't even like social media, right?
Yeah, it's kind of an oxymoron for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, well, so but for now, let's just continue and trying to wrap my head around a few things. And yeah, and funnily enough, my as you know, my lead magnet is around brain patterns.
Yes, it is. And it's a very good lead magnet. So I'm hoping that you're able to get some traction on that and move forward with that.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So we didn't talk before how we want to do that. So maybe how about we share what we understand as survival resource patterns, as
Yeah.
brain patterns, and and then maybe share a few experience where we worked on other people and how we experienced having been worked on. What do
Yeah.
you think about that?
I think that works. I'm going to try to remember them, right? Because it seems like you experience so much. It's sometimes for me anyway, it can be challenging to try to remember specifics. But I know that you and I have had some super powerful experiences with you as a practitioner working on me. I know that for a fact.
What are survival resource patterns? I like to begin with comparing it to trauma, because that's a really cool way of understanding it. The difference between trauma and survival resource patterns is like a trauma is a singular event, right?
Mhm.
It's where you respond to an acute threat with immediate protection, while
Yeah.
a survival resource pattern is ongoing energy conservation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And also something what we all know, but then don't understand the effects of all of this is how our brains are from our prehistoric ancestors, how our brains are still wired for survival, right? That we always had to scan for threats. We always needed to be hyper vigilant. And yeah, in order to offload the brain, it was optimized to recognize repetitive patterns
Mhm.
so that you could offload a few things into the part where you don't need to think about it and you just do repetitive tasks on autopilot and then have bandwidth to be hyper vigilant, right?
Yes.
And yeah, these stresses shape the brain circuitry, and the body also encodes those experiences. So, of course, there's a lot of stuff going on in the brain, but it has effects on the nervous system, or the nervous system has effects on the brain and also on the rest of the body. It all plays together, right? And yeah, so healing those brain patterns, it does not happen through force. You can't willpower yourself through it, right? So yeah, you need to create safety for yourself, for your nervous system through presence and awareness, and offer your brain a more efficient way to process things. Yeah, that's a very important point, that like you really can't willpower yourself out of those brain patterns. And that's also why traditional therapies sometimes fails, because even if you have the awareness for it, your brain is just wired that way. So it has nothing to do with you. There is no lack of willpower. You're not self-sabotaging. It's simply your nervous system and your brain following the well-known path it knows.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
something that I would underscore that you touched on is it's really about safety. You know,
Yeah.
we our subconscious especially is wired to keep us safe. And so
Yeah.
as we start identifying whether it be trauma or even just experiences, we experience something and our body, our brain patterns, you touched on both aspects of it. It's automation. It
Yeah.
starts becoming automatic. And then it also wants to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So those two things together really start to get those grooves in the brain, and then it just becomes the deeper the groove, the more often we experience it, the more automatic it becomes, and the
Yeah.
harder it can be to change it if you're not being intentional about it, which is where we come in.
Where we come in. And also, yes, safety. And especially as children, it also, I mean, both trauma and survival resource patterns, you can form them your entire life, right? But
Mhm.
those early ages are very interesting because our conscious mind hasn't kicked in yet fully, right? From the age
Yeah.
0 to 7, you operate only in the subconscious mind. So that's why those are the deepest grooves we have. And we
Mhm.
had no chance to compare it with our rational mind to really fully understand what's going on here. But it also is not only about safety, but also how we got our wants and needs met. You know,
Yes. Yes.
I find that one example that was so interesting that Jennifer brought about the youngest sibling in, imagine you have 3 children and you baby the youngest one all the time. They never had to do things on their own. They just had to wait and someone came and helped them. You know,
Yes.
that's also a survival resource pattern. You
Yes, it
learn,
is.
and it's the best survival resource pattern ever because you just sit there and expect that issues get resolved for you.
Yeah.
And
I
the
am not
oldest
the baby.
sibling,
I do not operate like that. Yeah.
yeah, but this is also a survival resource pattern. And I mean, guess what? Later, when you're out of your family system, it just doesn't work that way anymore.
Yeah. That's funny.
Maybe we should share maybe a few practical examples of survival resource patterns. I mean, I always share my personal first experience I had with Jennifer, where I told her, you know, I never feel like enough, and she was like, I mean, she's so brilliant, right? She immediately was like, it didn't even take her 2 or 3 minutes. She was like, oh, you had an older sister you admired, right? And I was like, yeah. Well, no wonder you never felt like. And it was a. I mean, my parents were really great to me. My older sister, I adore her. She's still the best bigger
Mm-hmm.
sister you can have. But I always felt the need. I want to be as cool, as pretty, as grown up. I mean, she's 4 years older than me. She could lace the shoes on her own, and I still couldn't do it. Yeah, that's why I always felt like, guess what? You're 4 years younger. You're not. You can't be like her, right? But
Yeah.
my brain made that up, and that's why I always felt like I'm not good enough. So that was a
Yes.
big SRP I had, and that's the one I still remember having been worked on.
Yes. Oh, as you're talking, I'm trying to remember the specifics, and kind of like you alluded to earlier, I think for me, once I've walked through them, it's been such a shift, and I haven't allowed myself really to think about them much. I just
Mhm.
have moved forward. So in a way, it's a blessing. I remember there was one that I remember it was started out about finances, but it ultimately took me to something with fear and an interaction with my dad. And I'm trying to remember the particulars of it, and I'm being
I
a little
think that was a
challenged.
session we had together.
Yeah, I think it may have been. Um, and I don't remember all of the and I'm trying to now logically like reconnect the dots, like what could have been the link between. Yes, it was a session with you, because yeah, again, with vulnerability, I remember I had to like pause, go and get my punching bag, and I
Yeah, I
legit like
remember that
punched
as
the heck
well.
out of the punching bag.
Yeah,
I do remember this one now.
yeah.
Yeah,
But do you
yeah.
remember how it played out, or?
Ah, oh, okay. I was thinking it had something to do with fear. I think it was fear of making a mistake. And so there was scarcity
Oh,
mindset there. And so if somehow the interaction with my dad, um, the pattern that developed, that afraid to make a mistake, played out in my finances. But it was so interesting and amazing, and speaks to the power of this work, how we started with, okay, I want to work on finances, and we ended up with an interaction with my dad that here, decades later, is what was
yeah,
impacting
yeah,
impacting my
yeah,
life.
yeah.
um and
Yeah,
the
one,
I was just saying, and the buried emotion that had to come out and be transmuted from that
yeah,
fear and rage
yeah,
and all of that into whatever we ended up transmuting that into,
yeah,
confidence,
yeah,
most likely.
yeah. And I mean, one aspect also that we shouldn't forget is those survival resource patterns. You can only reprogram them with offering your brain or your subconscious mind, yeah, has to understand that there's a better way to deal with things now,
Yes,
that
yes.
you're older, that you're more wiser, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also for me it feels, this work really feels like reconciliation. You know, that
Mm.
back then we were working with the tools, knowledge, and knowledge we had, and
Yeah.
we reconcile it, and this way the subconscious mind can let go and see like, okay, there's a more efficient way to run this type of situation. And
Yeah.
yeah, I remember the very first time I was working with the course colleague on this. I actually was working with that person twice, and it was at the very beginning of our course and then at the end of our course as well, again. And I mean, the course takes 5 months, right? We take with Jennifer. And in the beginning, I felt like, okay, right now, she's just so drained. She really needs to rest right now. We can't go any deeper right now. And she really needs to sleep, take rest, feel safe in her body and relax, right? And then 5 months later, we were working again, and we were working on the same issue. And this time we were able to resolve it because, again, she felt safe, that aspect we touched upon yet. So the nervous system was regulated. She felt safe in her own body. She did some work on other things, and then she was able to release this. And it was about standing up to people who treated her poorly. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
but
know,
it's
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
it's really profound work we're doing. I mean, things come up where people they buried that, and for me, when I work with people on it, it's very natural through conversations that it feels like, okay, now we found something and we can go deeper into our method we learned, and to naturally release it without force. Yeah,
Well, I was
yeah,
just going to say how powerful that resolving that issue must have been in that person's life to be able
yeah.
to stand up for themselves and stand up to others, you know, as they're walking through life. That's going to be a game changer for that
Yeah,
person.
and I mean, I was working with one course colleague, and it's, as you said, sometimes when we were working, with the finance problem, where you suddenly you end up with an issue of your childhood with your father.
Yeah.
I was working with with the course colleague, and she was like, "I really want to get to the root cause of my gingivitis." And
Mm.
it turned out that she got her first child very early. So she was maybe 23 years old. And she was like, well, this was just far too, and this is when the gingivitis started. So through the method again, we ended up at the age of 23. And I was asking her, well, what happened then? And she was like, well, this was when I had my first child, and I can see myself there laying with that new baby, and myself was a baby, and then we went through the method. She was able to hug her younger self and was just able to shed all that burden of being so young. And yeah,
Yeah.
should check in with that person whether to know whether gingivitis is better now. But it's just like so profound, this work, that you start working with gingivitis and end up with
Mhm.
such a, yeah, how do you call that, impactful time of her life.
Well, the body, there's a book by the title "The Body Keeps the Score." It also keeps
Yeah,
the story, right? And that's
yeah,
part of what we do is help to identify the story. And then I don't know that we've talked about this in any of our conversations, but the brain does not know the difference between real life and what you imagine. So
yeah,
that's important to recognize, you know, for being mindful of what content you allow yourself to consume visually, especially like TV, social media, etc.
yeah,
But also through the work that we do using the visualizations. Now, granted, there's other things that we bring in, so it's not, you can't just, anybody out there just go and think about something and, you know, have it healed. We have more nuances that we bring to the table than that. But it speaks to the power of the mind to retrain, rewire, and then that byproduct is going to be different behaviors. It's just naturally going to flow.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's beautifully put.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have another example maybe where does something come to mind where you were like, whoa, how did we end up here?
Not that's coming to mind. That was the one, and I know that there've been several for me, but that one was the one that was, I think, the most powerful, because not only for me was it a mental reaction, but it was visceral and emotional. Like I had
Mm.
to get, it was such a strong emotion that I had to go get my punching bag to release that rage. Um, so yeah, what about you? Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I'm still lingering on the sensation that happens when we go through when the survivor resource pattern comes up in a session. I mean, there are so many other things we work with as holistic intuitive practitioners, right? It's not always an SRP as we call them, but yeah, as I shared earlier, this reconciliation effect I find so that's such a big release already to
Mhm.
put put the dots together, connect the dots finally, and that already brings a big release, I find. And linking back to what you said earlier, that it doesn't, if you imagine crossing the road or actually walking crossing the road
Mhm.
physically, it doesn't make a difference for your brain. And one effect, and no, how did you say it? How did you phrase it? That that the rewiring is a natural byproduct of the process we go through together in
Yes,
a session.
yes,
That's so
yes.
beautifully put, because then, whenever that trigger comes up, whenever I felt like in a similar situation where usually I would have buried myself again in self-doubt and would have felt small and not enough,
Mhm.
suddenly it wasn't there anymore. It felt
Yeah.
like I want to go to the kitchen and forgot what I wanted to get.
Oh, I do have. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you just made me remember something. You just made me
Yeah.
remember.
It's gone, it just doesn't come up anymore. It's
Yes,
so
yes.
liberating, that peace you suddenly have, because you're not, yeah, we don't like, I mean, I don't like that word. I'm not triggered anymore. Trigger is such a buzzword, right? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
no,
share, tell
that's
me,
beautiful.
what
I
do you remember?
I apologize for just exclaiming, but it was like such a light bulb moment in my mind that I just like it caught myself off guard.
No,
Um,
tell us. I want to know.
so I had to take my husband to the emergency room a few weeks ago. He's got an issue that he's dealing with, and it's going to be fine, but that's not the point. The point is, it was the middle of the night, and I was speeding, and I kind of didn't care that I was speeding because we needed to get to the emergency room. So much so that even ahead of time, I was like, I told my husband, and like, be careful what you say, right? Because I'm just like, I don't care. I'm going to speed. If I get pulled over, I'll explain the situation. So I did. I got pulled over. Now, here's the part that talk about inner healing work, right? Previously, I would have been so freaked out because an authority figure pulled me over, and it would have like triggered all the alarms, bells and whistles for me of shame, embarrassment, guilt, fear, all of those condemnation kind of emotions. And in that moment, I was just like, here's my license information. This is what's going on. We got to go. And
Yeah.
he still did his due diligence. He took it and ran it back and everything. But the point is, I did not have a visceral reaction to that.
Yeah.
And that is so huge for me because any other time in my life, and it doesn't have to be a policeman, pulling me over, but if there was an authority figure that I felt that I was in trouble with in some way, then I would have had a really big visceral and emotional response to that. And it was
Yeah.
gone.
It
And while
was
I
gone.
can't say this was specifically because of a certain SRP, survival resource pattern, that we did, I can attest to the amount of holistic intuitive practitioner sessions, that I have had during our coursework, and some other different modalities that I've done as well. But
Yeah.
just the power of this type of work to rewire your brain and then rewire your thoughts and your behaviors that just naturally ensue after that.
Yeah, and you took responsibility for speeding, but it didn't
Yes,
cripple
yes,
you, right? Yeah.
exactly,
You made
exactly.
the conscious choice of like, okay, this is what needs to be done, and I'm dealing with it. And
Yes, yes.
yeah.
And tracking back to that word reconciliation that you used. I love that so much from a faith-based perspective, because that's really part of what Christ did, is he came back to reconcile people to himself and God the Father. And so for me, from my lens, we get to partner in that work with him through going back and reconciling these brain patterns and reconciling these experiences that we had, to really free ourselves into moving more into a more liberated life. So
Mm,
I love that terminology that you use for
mm,
that.
mm, mm. Yeah, another example I remember was like that I was practicing also with the course colleague, and she was like, because the we work very goal oriented, right? And she's in her 50s and was like, there are certain hip opener poses in yoga I just can't do. For the
Mm.
life of me, I just can't do them. And then we went through the process and we traced it back to that she was molested
Mm.
um, as a teenager. So it was such a huge thing for her to finally be able to let that go, right?
Yeah.
To reconcile that situation, to as her adult self make peace with the situation and also care for her inner child back then, right?
Yeah.
So that was deeply buried in her, and she was, yeah, she just didn't have any access to it. And yeah, I
Mhm.
know, I mean, we know that hip openers, that's an area of your body that's very sensitive. And yeah, I mean, I would say that 95% of the time there has been yeah, something going
Yeah.
on in that area when you have restrictions there. But yeah, walking somebody through that process and then that exhale of like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
finally I can let that go,
That
right?
is such a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
I think that this is a good space to mention the sacredness of the work
yeah,
that we do.
yeah,
Um, you know, I feel like I can safely speak for both of us in this, and say that we just really hold the stories and the wounds and experiences of our clients in such high regard and such sacredness,
yeah,
as we walk with them through their journeys.
yeah. And seeing the grace and dignity and the courage it takes them to, yeah, to deal with those things, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Whew, I'm just thinking about all the clients, and it makes me feel like I want to cry, because like some stories are coming back, right? And it's a
yeah,
lot. It's an honor. It's an honor to walk with people through their healing journey. Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know that I emphasize it a lot, but as we are so goal oriented, it's just like, oh, maybe, yeah, maybe you think that um, having the goal to reach a certain yoga pose is small, but what that yoga pose represents is just so huge. And then,
Yeah.
yes, the stories we are holding are heavy, but it's also like always striving towards something. We're not clinging to the past. We are like, okay, where do we want to lead us? Where do we want this thing to lead us? Sorry, I have a
Yeah.
lot. I have a word salad. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as far as like setting a goal within the sessions with us, the work that we do, it's so important, not just within the work that we do, but just kind of as a nugget for viewers to take away, that it should be something, a positive goal. Now, what I mean by that is the brain doesn't recognize the word not. So if you
yeah,
have a little child that's going to run across the street, you would you if you say don't run or do not run, they're not going to hear that. They're going to hear run. So you
yeah,
would want to say, instead, you would say walk. So it's the same way in any goal that someone would want to set, whether it be through an SRP, a session with us, or just something that they're wanting to work on at home. They want to make sure to use phrasing that gives the brain something to hang a hook on,
yeah,
without that negative, because you can't have it something that doesn't exist, you can't hang your hat on that.
Yeah. And your brain really needs something to organize itself around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can't, if you tell your brain, I don't want to eat that much, guess what it's organizing around, right? Eating
Yep.
more, eating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if you organize yourself around eat healthy, yeah,
Yes.
that's the different story.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I was trying to get an analogy in my head and I was struggling, so I'm glad that you came up with a way to explain that a little bit
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. And the book I just finished, Mind to Matter, it's really about how intention shapes our lives, our world,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. I have that on my bookshelf. I haven't read it yet, but now I'm going to have to.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a little bit like Healing is Voltage. I
Hmm.
find the chapters are very interesting in itself, but I don't see a proper flow, but that's probably a problem between my ears. So it's like yeah, I didn't see fully how the storyline unfolds, but each
Mm.
chapter in itself has so much wisdom that it's a nice read for sure. Yeah.
You know what we should do sometime is maybe a book review or just not review, but like recommendations, because I know that you've read a ton of good books and I've got a ton
Yeah.
of good books. So that might be something fun to do at some point as well.
Yeah. Are you reading something right now?
I'm always reading like about five things at the same time, which is not the best way to do it. So yeah, I need to narrow it down. That's also on my to-do list, is like get a little bit more structure in my day, and so I can have a little bit more organization of this is what I'm reading and this is when I'm reading it, with flexibility obviously. But I think for a while, for most of this year, it's been, for me, um I don't want to use the word chaotic, but just full and busy and a lot of things going on simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
that I haven't been able to get as organized and structured as I prefer to be. I flow
Mm-hmm.
best when I can have some boundaries and some organization in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what I need to be really focusing on in the next, 3 to 4 weeks as well, or at least until the end of the. I'm going to give myself, a little bit more margin than that till like new year, new beginnings. Give myself the next couple of months to kind of figure out what that really looks like to me. I spent a lot of time yesterday trying to figure out a new day planner. I know I'm kind of old school. I like paper and pencil,
Yeah.
when it comes to that.
Fair
I
enough.
use technology too, but there's something for me about having something tangible. So,
Yeah. Yeah. As said, I have that little book focusing, and then I'll read One Mind next. Yeah. And you mentioned that you had a presentation this morning around brain patterns.
it was online. I attended it. So
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
it was a webinar. There's so many free webinars online, and I just always like to, like you, increase my tool set, expand my knowledge base. So it was on brain rewiring and a lot of similar things that you and I, are already aware of. But it was just such a great reminder. Um,
Yeah.
kind of things that we've already touched on. The brain doesn't know if something is real or imagined. Um, Two people can experience the same exact thing, but really it's our perception of that really makes a difference. The example that was given is, let's say, you're walking through a path and somebody yells, "There's a snake." Well, if you're afraid of snakes, you may freak out, run away, climb
Yeah.
up onto something to get away from it. But
Yeah.
if you love snakes, you might run toward the snake. Oh, well, where is it? Let me see it. What color is it?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's really from that framework, which again is the importance of those brain patterns. It really dictates how you not only approach life, but how you experience life. And then,
Yeah.
then that just keeps building, right? If you've got that kind of like, if you think of like a tire track in a muddy, on a muddy dirt road, the
Yeah. The
more you
groove
run
gets
over it.
thinner,
Yes, that's
deeper.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the more and more you
Yeah.
go over it, the deeper it gets.
Yeah, and one little analogy I like a lot is like you have identical twins and their father was alcoholic.
Mhm.
The one became identical twins. One became alcoholic and the other one became a striving banker. And
Yeah.
they asked both like, well, what happened? How did you become so successful? And that one child, that one twin answered, well, I didn't have a chance with that alcoholic father. And then they asked the alcoholic twin, like, what happened? Why did you become alcoholic? Well, what choice did I have with that father?
Yes. Yes.
Mm, yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mindset. I mean, I don't want to say mindset really is everything, but mindset really is everything. I mean, it's like, it's so
Yeah, and
powerful.
again, it's those survival resource patterns, although it was
Mhm.
identical twins. And I mean, remember sometimes when I talk to my siblings how they experienced certain, okay, there's an age gap. Yeah, but still, we had the same experience growing up, and they
Yes.
processed things totally different than I did. They have
Yeah.
totally different survival resource patterns than I did. But you know what? There is one thing where we are, the three of us, we have a very big sense of justice. And it's really weird. It runs in the family kind of. So nobody knows where this is coming from. But this sense of when things are unfair, that really is like a big thing for us in the family. And it has a negative counterpart. And in one session, this was released. And it actually comes from 3 generations down of us, where this SRP appeared first. And I mean, on the one hand, you can experience it in a positive way, as a good sense of justice when things are
Mhm.
fair. But on the other hand, it also can play out as like, I can't be happy as long as everybody else isn't happy, you know? And for
Yeah.
me here, that was for a time a big thing, because I mean, I felt so deeply for all the people that have less than I have, and I felt so guilty for
Mhm.
having more, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Until in that session it was resolved, well, like, you can't do God's work, their life is still valuable, and it's not up to me to judge if this is fair right now, what happens to them or not. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes, and that's very powerful.
Yeah, but that was 3 generations down, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was as we were talking, I was thinking about just the generational stuff and how that gets carried
Mm.
from generation to generation. And I feel like this could be a whole nother conversation that we have, but I was talking to, I think it was my mom the other day, because I've worked on her, and I have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Aware, and intentional on the timing when I work on her, because since mothers still carry the cells of their children, like scientifically, they still carry the same cells as their
Yeah.
children. And then, so also scientifically, studies have been done where, like, if you have a cell, and split the cell and take one cell 100 miles away from where the other cell is, and it will respond. If you do want something to the one cell, the same thing will happen to the other cell.
Yeah.
So, point being, I have to be intentional and aware when I work on my mom, because as I work on her and she starts shifting things, I start feeling things shift on me. So the reason
Yeah.
why I have to be
You're
intentional
entangled.
is if it's a big shift, that might, impact my energy level, for a day or so. So I've just got to be mindful. That's the word I was looking for, mindful
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
when I work on her and what obligations I have in my personal life. But that's just so powerful though, because for your point, 3 generations. So then by you doing the work, that impacts your lineage going forward and going backward as well when you clear those.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really fascinating.
It's fascinating. And maybe to close, this is just a thought that I have where I want to learn more, and I'm curious if you have some recommendations, is around energy work. I would love to dive deeper into it. And I know that it was part of your Theo Rafa training, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Yeah. Did they have some recommendations there specifically around the energy aspect, or?
Well, it's called energy psychology. So trying to figure out the best way to answer that question. There was conversation around it. There was a lot of additional resources. Like if you want to learn more, here's, websites or books, that type of thing. I guess I would need you to maybe tell me more a little bit. I think maybe let's talk more offline on that to kind of
Okay.
unpack that a little bit more. Because
Yeah.
this could go a number of different ways. And I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we're intentional about the way we take it.
Yeah. But energy psychology is already a good keyword.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think?
I think this is a good conversation. Yeah. I think that we've
Yeah.
covered a lot, even though we
Yeah.
were going to talk about brain patterns. We did do that, but then we also covered other things as well, which we always do. And I love that
Yeah.
about us because, we always, what is that expression? Under promise, over deliver. We always, I think, give our viewers
And
more
we
bang
never
for
know
their buck.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Bye bye.